Germany's entire industrial model was built on one assumption: that cheap Russian gas would never stop. In 2021, Germany was importing 55% of its natural gas from Russia. Not because alternatives didn't exist, because Russian gas was so cheap, so reliable, that building dependency made perfect economic sense. Every government since reunification made the same calculation. Left, right, center. The political color didn't matter. The economics were too good to question. Then February 2022 happened, and overnight, the assumption that built Europe's largest economy collapsed. What happened next is not just an energy story, it is the story of how an entire economic model dies, and what replaces it, if anything does. To understand Germany's problem, you need to understand one concept: structural competitive advantage versus artificial competitive advantage. These are two completely different things, and confusing them is how entire economies get caught off guard. Structural competitive advantage is real. It comes from technology, from skilled labor, from genuine innovation. It cannot be easily copied or removed. Artificial competitive advantage is borrowed. It comes from access to something unusually cheap: energy, labor, raw materials that competitors don't have. It can disappear overnight without warning. Germany's post-war industrial miracle was built on both. The engineering excellence was structural, real, earned decades in the making. The energy pricing was artificial, borrowed, Russian, and contingent on a geopolitical relationship that most people in Berlin chose not to examine too closely. And when the artificial advantage disappeared, it didn't just affect energy bills. It began unwinding the economics of everything built on top of it. Before the data, something most coverage completely misses. This is not a story about Germany suffering because of sanctions. This is a story about Germany discovering that its competitive model had a hidden dependency that nobody wanted to talk about for 30 years. The counterargument, and it's a real one, is that Germany is adapting. 7 new LNG terminals came online in under 2 years. $200 billion in climate investment. Renewables scaling faster than any previous forecast. These are not trivial achievements, but here's the problem with recovery narratives. They measure the wrong thing. Energy security is not the same as energy competitiveness. Germany may fully secure its gas supply and still lose its industrial base, because secure energy at $80 per megawatt hour is still 3 times what American manufacturers pay today. The crisis may end, the cost disadvantage will not. 3 systems are now breaking simultaneously because of that dependency. Each one serious alone. Together, they may be irreversible. In 2021, Germany's industrial gas price averaged approximately $20 per megawatt hour, per European Energy Exchange data. By August 2022, that price had reached $350 per megawatt hour. That is a 1,650% increase in under 18 months. To put that in context, imagine your factory's single largest operating cost increasing 17 times over. Not 17%, 17 times. For German heavy industry, chemicals, steel, glass, ceramics, paper, energy is not a minor line item. It is the fundamental input cost that determines whether production is profitable at all. When that cost multiplies by 17, the math on every factory in Germany changes simultaneously. BASF, the world's largest chemical company, headquartered in Ludwigshafen, announced in 2022 that it would permanently reduce its European capacity. Not pause, not review, permanently reduce. Its CEO said publicly what most executives were only saying in private: European energy prices had made certain chemical production permanently uncompetitive versus American and Asian rivals. BASF began shifting capital to its Zhanjiang complex in China, where energy costs remain a fraction of current European levels. This matters beyond one company. When an anchor industrial firm relocates, its entire supplier ecosystem follows. Logistics providers, specialty chemical inputs, engineering services, maintenance contractors. Supply chains, once relocated, do not reverse. The ecosystem that took decades to build in the Rhine Valley does not reassemble itself because spot gas prices improved. Germany's industrial production index fell 10% between 2022 and 2024. That number does not sound dramatic. It is. Germany's industrial sector accounts for approximately 20% of GDP, double the share of France, triple the UK. For Germany, industry is not one segment of the economy. It is the foundation everything else rests on. When it contracts, the downstream effects compound through supplier networks, logistics, and tax receipts. In 2024, Germany's economy contracted for the second consecutive year, the only major Western economy to do so. Volkswagen announced it was considering closing German factories for the first time in its 87-year history. Not restructuring, not reducing shifts. Closing. Volkswagen cited energy costs and the transition to electric vehicles. Chinese competitors, operating on subsidized energy, have built a cost structure German manufacturers cannot match. Both problems trace back to the same root. Germany built its competitive model on cheap Russian energy. That model is now being dismantled, not by political choice, but by arithmetic. Germany has a constitutional debt brake, the Schuldenbremse, limiting federal borrowing to 0.35% of GDP annually. It was designed as a discipline mechanism, a guarantee Germany would not repeat fiscal mistakes of weaker European economies. In 2022, 2023, and 2024, it was suspended repeatedly. The energy crisis required emergency spending the rule made impossible. Germany's federal debt now stands at approximately $2.5 trillion, roughly 64% of GDP. By European standards, this remains manageable, but the trajectory has changed. For decades, Germany ran fiscal surpluses. The famous Schwarz Null, the black zero, was a point of national identity. Germany was the country that didn't borrow, that paid its way. That era is over. The energy transition alone will require an estimated $600 billion over the next decade. That money has to come from somewhere. Either private investment, which requires returns current economics don't support, or public borrowing, which requires reforming the debt brake or finding cuts political coalitions cannot agree on. The implication for bond yields is not that Germany becomes Greece. It is that the risk-free premium German debt has historically commanded becomes harder to justify. That repricing, when it comes, will not be announced. It will happen gradually, then suddenly. Here is what most coverage gets wrong about Germany's energy crisis. They frame it as a policy mistake. That framing misses the deeper truth. Germany's dependency on Russian gas was not an accident. It was a rational economic decision made over 30 years by governments of every political persuasion. Cheap Russian gas made German industry competitive. That competitiveness produced export surpluses. That prosperity made German voters happy. The system worked. Nobody had an individual incentive to break it. The right comparison is to any business that optimizes so completely around one supplier. Germany optimized for 30 years. The supplier disappeared in 30 days. What comes next is not a recovery story. It is a reinvention story. Reinvention at the scale of Europe's largest economy, with a constitutional debt brake that creates fiscal drag, an aging workforce that limits retraining velocity, and Chinese competition entrenched in its core export sectors, has no guaranteed outcome and no historical precedent to draw clean lessons from. The warnings existed. The dependency was visible to anyone who looked. The alternative was politically inconvenient, so nobody chose it until there was no choice left. If you hold European assets, German equities, European industrials, euro-denominated sovereign debt, you do not need to predict exactly how this ends. You just need to stop assuming it resolves itself. The last time an economy this size faced simultaneous energy shock, industrial contraction, and fiscal constraint. The resolution took a decade. It was not clean, and it was not painless for anyone connected to it. Germany's industrial production index is at its lowest since 2005. What is your exit trigger? Tell me in the comments. I read everyone, and the best answers become the foundation of the next video. Because the next video covers the one European economy quietly absorbing German industrial capacity right now. One relocation, one supply chain, one factory at a time. Most people haven't noticed it yet. The data is public. The direction is visible. Most people will wait until it's obvious.